Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto is banished from Konoha and joins Kumo Harem, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. By order of the Council of Konoha, Uzumaki Naruto-san, you are hereby banished from Konoha for your crimes. A voice said in the darkened room of where the council held trials for both shinobi and citizen alike. All the clan heads sat in their respective seats and the two elders in front. Tsunade was sitting to the side of the elders with a sad expression bearing her face. Danzo was missing for some apparent reason. Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, the strongest of all Biju, was standing in front of the elders with his head down. Who knew that a mission to save Sasuke would go like this? He went out of his way to try and bring Konoha back their precious Uchiha. But that's not what the Kyuubi had planned. Naruto and Sakura were able to obtain information from one of the Akatsuki, Sasori of the Red Sand, about Sasuke's whereabouts. Tsunade had helped them set up the mission and found two replacements for the team. Sai, a ninja about the same age as Naruto, was assigned on the mission. He seemed very odd to Naruto. Then, the leader of the mission, Yamato, was to replace Kakashi. Naruto thought he had a scary look about him. Didn't help when Yamato would come out of nowhere to try and scare Naruto. During the fight at the Tenchi Bridge, Naruto activated the Kyuubi's chakra from anger and soon grew four tails. Sakura, not knowing he was not in his right mind, tried to help Naruto but he lashed out at her and hurt her arm. It wasn't a fatal injury but when the council got hold of this incident, they went out against Naruto. Koharu and Homura glared at the young Jinchuriki with those stares that they're known for. Homura had always been out for the Kyuubi brat. He was the one who was responsible. Naruto didn't get a good education or told the teachers not to do their jobs when it came to him. The civilians helped out since they hated the Kyuubi anyway. Homura smiled secretly as he and Konoha had now been rid of the Kyuubi. For attacking your teammate, you have been given the charge of attempted murder. Koharu said. But it wasn't my fault. I didn't have control. Naruto yelled back. Then it is your fault. You should have kept your emotions in check. Homura yelled, glaring at the boy with a cold intent. The clan heads looked at each other in a worried manner. They were all thinking how they were going to tell their kids when they find out Naruto has left the village. We do not see the charge to be that of attempted murder. Shikaku said aloud. The two elders glared at him. And you have no power in this trial. You are neither parent nor guardian of the boy and no person in the legal council will help him. Homura said to him, a little too confident in his tone. He was actually the one who ordered them to not take his case. Tsunade had had enough and stood up, slamming her hands on the desk in front of her as she did so. This trial is a farce. You just want Naruto out of the village because the people complain about him. Even when he doesn't do half the things that they claim. She then looked at Naruto. He seemed sad, like he was defeated. You dare call the civilians of Konoha liars? Homura yelled back. Tsunade glared and gritted her teeth at him. Of course. They've been against him since he was a kid and this is no better. You two are taking this accident way out of context. Of course he can't control the Kyuubi. He's only 15 years old. Having control of the most powerful of the Biju would be impossible without years of training, which he only started about 2 years ago. Tsunade's chest was heaving up and down. His fate is sealed, a voice said from the shadows. An elderly man with bandages over most of his body and leaned on a walking stick came into view. Tsunade immediately recognized him as Danzo. He held up a scroll and unrolled it. By the daimyo's orders, Uzumaki Naruto is to leave the village in exile. He can never return as a Konoha shinobi or citizen. He said, trying to hide his own smile. He knew the Kyuubi Jinchuriki would someday cause him nuisance, so he persuaded the fire daimyo to banish Naruto from Konoha. Thanks to his Sharingan under his bandaged eye, it was very easy to convince the man. Tsunade was trembling in anger. She couldn't stand this. Her grandson was going to have to leave even if it was an accident. This isn't right. She sat back down to try and make sure she didn't cry. Her fingers were rolled up into fists and she closed her eyes. None of the other council members or her, the Hokage, could do anything to help Naruto. If the daimyo's signature was genuine, then Konoha just lost the one thing that brought her there. So that's it, huh? Naruto asked the council with an angered expression, but his eyes remained blue. After everything I've done for the village, this is what I get. His chakra began to become visible. Koharu and Homura gasped, thinking the Kyuubi was trying to break free. I've nearly died on multiple occasions for this village. No matter what anyone thinks, this is my home. I've made too strong a bond here to just let it go. I don't care what the fire daimyo wrote on some piece of crap paper. I'm not leaving. Danzo chuckled at the sight. The boy was actually trying to keep up a tough facade. If anything, he knew that he could have made Naruto into a weapon, an obedient one at that. But it was the boy's foolish knowledge that anyone can change. That was not what Danzo thought. If you are a murderer, then you are forever. You can never change something like that. Too bad the boy had been a bit of a pain since he became a genin. First was defeating Gaara during the attack on Konoha during the Chunin exams. The second was bringing Tsunade back so that she could be Hokage instead of him. He knew that he didn't want to take a chance with a third incident that foiled his plans for Konoha. No matter the cost, Uzumaki Naruto had to go. Even if the old war hawk knew that it was all an accident. The clan heads looked at Naruto with a smile on their faces. They respected that he wanted to stay at his home, even if none of the villagers liked him. Homura, however, wasn't so pleased. His wrinkled face became even more so when his expression became angry. This is no longer your home, you demon. He yelled and everyone in the room looked at him. Tsunade glared at him with killing intent. Naruto's head was hung as soon as he heard what he heard throughout his whole life. Demon. He couldn't get past that. He was the prison, not the prisoner, but apparently that's what that old man thought of him. He clenched his fists and looked at the spectacled old man. You can kiss my for all I care. Naruto grinned. XXX. It was the next day when Naruto was done packing. He was sitting on the bed of his room in his apartment. He had found something incredible when he was making sure he didn't forget anything. There was a trap door in the wood floor of his room. Naruto discovered it when he tripped on a piece of the plank that stuck out a couple inches from the others. Stupid wood, he thought as he read the scrolls. There were 3 in total and a chest with even more scrolls with the same orange swirl that he always wore. He opened the first one to read its contents. Dear Naruto, if you've found the trap door, then you must be around 15 or 16 by now. That's when the seal I made to keep it hidden would wear off. I'm sure you've noticed the other 2 scrolls along with the chest. Well, they are your parents' scrolls. Naruto's eyes widened when he read that part, but he kept reading. I'm not going to tell you who they are because, what's the fun in that when you can read and find out? I know you loathe reading, but I know you won't pee up a chance to find out about them. I was supposed to give you these when you became a Chunin, but I had a bad feeling the day during of the Chunin exams. So I hid them here unbeknownst to you. I don't know if I'm dead or not, but if I am, then I'm sorry for keeping this a secret from you. I also hid a little present in the floorboard under your bed. I'm sure you'll like it. It belonged to your father. I hope you can forgive this old man, Naruto. Be strong and keep the will of fire burning. From the old man. Naruto's eyes welled up with tears at seeing a late present from the Sandaime. It's too bad that he was about to leave the village. Forgetting the other scrolls for the moment, he set down the now read scroll and moved his bed. He carefully moved the floorboards out piece by piece and stacked them. In the small, hidden space was a single seal. This is Gigi's present. A seal. How exciting. Naruto thought with sarcasm aimed at the last part. Then Naruto remembered something about scrolls from Arrow Sennin during the trip. I'm supposed to add chakra to it. Naruto said victorious. He put chakra into his right palm and placed it on the seal. The seal radiated a mixture of both red and yellow and something appeared in front of him. It was a piece of clothing that Naruto thought he saw somewhere. He picked it up while standing and unfolded the white piece of clothing. It looked to be just about Naruto's size. It had red flames that licked at the bottom of the cloak. Naruto put it on and went to his mirror in the bathroom. You know, this is oddly familiar. I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. Naruto then went back to the other scrolls. He opened the scroll that had a golden color on the outside of the scroll. He opened it and began reading. To my son, Naruto. Naruto, if I know the old man as well as I do, and that's pretty well if you ask me, then you know nothing of me or your mother. Hopefully, he's told you about your tenant. Well, enough of that. My name is Minato Namikaze, or you may know me as the Yondaime Hokage. His mouth agape. Naruto stared at the scroll, dumbfounded. He couldn't believe it. Now he knew where he'd seen that cloak from. It was the Hokage's, or apparently, his father. He felt happy to know that his hero was his own dad. The blood of the strongest Hokage ran through his. But then, he realized something. His dad was the very one who put the damn demon in him in the first place. He read on hoping to find a reason for his father's act. I'm sure you're angry at me for giving you the burden of being a Jinchuriki. But I told Hiruzen to tell the villagers that you were a hero and not a monster. I wanted you to be happy. I still do even though I'm dead. I don't know how your life has been but, I hope you are happy. I'll haunt every villager from the grave if they hurt you. Naruto laughed at his father's joke. Be strong my son. I know you will become a great shinobi someday. It'd heartbreak me if you didn't. But I digress. I'm leaving you my cloak so that it can make you look as cool as me. Hehehe. Hopefully you didn't get my horrible sense of humor. I'm sorry I couldn't see you grow up. But know that I love you very much, and so does your mother. You'll see her last words next to mine. Oh, before I forget, I left a chest filled with scrolls containing jutsu from my home village before I came to Konoha. That, Kumogakure by the way. If you're my son you should have an affinity for lightning and maybe water from your mother's side. I was able to also use Ranton, storm release. It's a mixture of both chakra elements. Along with that, I'm leaving you the instructions to the technique that made me known as the Yellow Flash. The Hiraishin no Jutsu. It is Jikuukan ninjutsu at its best. Well almost anyway, I have to use a seal for it. Maybe you can master it without it. That should be it for what I've left you. I hope you're fine Naruto. Your mother and I love you very much. Your father. Minato Namikaze. Naruto, without hesitation went to the scroll that he found out to be his mom's. The scroll was orange. He opened it and read it quickly. Dear Naruto, my name is Kushina Uzumaki and if you are reading this, then your father and I are dead. We wrote these with our chakra before we died. I'm sorry we didn't get to raise you, or watch you grow into a fine man, and maybe shinobi. My dear Naruto, I hope you grew up happy. I'll never forgive Konoha if they harm you for something we put on you. You see, the night of your birth a man tried to kill me. He had an orange mask with a swirl on it. Minato tried to protect me and you but somehow the bastard got past your father and, in my weakened state, released the Kyuubi from my body. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that I was the previous Jinchuriki didn't I? Sorry about that. Naruto's sweat dropped at that. I wonder if I took after her, he said to no one in particular. Due to our clan's ability to long life, I was able to live. Our clan originated from Uzu no Kuni before it was destroyed during the Third Great Shinobi World War. We happened to be masters at Fuinjutsu and were damned good if you asked me. I was the one who taught sealing to your father. Somehow Naruto could see the image of a woman pumping her fist in the air at her skill and accomplishment. Naruto laughed at that. Anyway, the Kyuubi began to wreak havoc on Konoha due to the masked man's influence. He possessed the Sharingan. That's probably how he controlled the Biju. Your father fought the man off and the man retreated. But the Kyuubi still raged. So, we used a last resort. We used a sealing jutsu called the Dead Demon Consuming Seal to seal it into you. Your father died immediately after he wrote his letter. Using chakra, it didn't take him long. I don't have long either. My eyes feel so heavy, but I don't want to close them. But I'll have to soon. I'm sorry, Naruto. Please forgive me. I love you and stay healthy. Meet a girl just like your mother. We leave our will of fire to you. Your mother, Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto began to cry at his mother's last words. He didn't hate them at all. He was happy to know that they loved him. And now, even if he didn't meet them, he loved them as well. For they were his parents. He put the 3 scrolls away and put them into the chest. He unrolled his own scroll and put the chest on it. Naruto made the ram seal. He contained the chest inside the scroll. Something he learned on the trip, since it did come in handy at times. He stood up and made one last check before he left the room with a saddened look. He made his way down the streets of Konoha. He anticipated the glares but shrugged them off as always. You'll be happy to know that I won't be here any longer. The young Namikaze thought as he saw the village gate. He did notice some gasps from the people, saying something about him looking just like the Yondaime. He grinned as he kept walking. He guessed the cloak's cool look power was already working. He saw people in front of the gate as he stopped just a few feet from them. The blonde saw Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Guy, Sakura, and teams 8, 10, and Guy looking at him. Most of them had astonished looks on them. Most likely at Naruto's new attire. Tsunade gasped as she saw her fellow blonde wearing that oh so familiar cloak. Naruto, where did you get that? She asked him. She'd wondered if he found out about his parents somehow, but she quickly threw the notion away. There was no way he could have. She shook her head, chuckling. I found it in my room. Turns out, I'm the son of someone famous. Naruto yelled loudly while grinning. Jiraiya was aghast. He looked like the spitting image of his student. Except for the whisker marks and shorter hair, he could have been a carbon copy. The perverted sage looked sadly at Naruto as his friends had gathered around him asking who left him the cloak. He guessed that they knew but were confirming it. He knows. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade. I wonder how he could have found out. She mused. Jiraiya shrugged. He certainly lives up to his unpredictable streak. The sage said, smiling to her. After Naruto was done telling them, they were all shocked, and yet, happy for Naruto. Hinata and Sakura especially. They felt sorry by the way he was always looked at and without parents. Naruto went around saying solemn goodbyes to everyone. He hated having to see their saddened faces. I guess a spar would be out of the question. Dobi. Kiba asked jokingly. Naruto shook his head sadly. Not this time, Kiba. But if we do meet again, you bet you're that I'll win. He yelled, hitting his chest with his right fist. PFF'd. In your dreams. Naruto laughed and continued on. He stopped in front of Hinata. Naruto-kun. Is something wrong? She asked, blushing slightly as he looked at her with his blue orbs. Those eyes always made her look away, for fear that she'd become lost in them and faint. Naruto suddenly hugged her and her face went redder than Jiraiya's cloak. Naruto let go and smiled at the Hyuga heiress. I know I never show it to you, Hinata, but you're a great friend. Always there when I was a kid and crying when the villagers kept calling me demon. You're one of the reasons I didn't hate everyone in the village. Thank you, Hinata, he said, scratching his cheek and was blushing a little. And no, it was nothing. You've always been a good friend as well, Naruto-kun. She said at him, successful at not stuttering more than one word in a sentence talking to Naruto. She saw him smile back and she reciprocated with her own. It tore her heart that she'd never see the boisterous blonde or work up the courage to finally tell him her feelings. Naruto finally finished his near-tearing goodbye to Sakura. Both of them were sad, but he knew Sakura felt worse. She was now the last original member on Team 7. "I'm sorry, Sakura-chan," he said to her sadly. "Baka, it's not your fault." She hugged him and was now staring at Tsunade and Jiraiya. He took off his headband and handed it to Tsunade. "I'm really sorry about this, Naruto. If only the council would take out those sticks in their asses." Naruto laughed at Tsunade's statement. "It's not your fault, Ba-chan. Those old bags were looking for anything to kick me out," Naruto complained. He hugged her for the last time and faced Jiraiya. "Don't be a stranger, Gaki," Jiraiya said, trying to ease the atmosphere, but it didn't seem to work. Tsunade hit him on the head. "OWW." He grasped his head to try and soothe the pain. "That's all you have to say. Tell him a real goodbye." She yelled at him and he sighed. Naruto laughed at the silver-haired pervert and got his attention again. "Where are you going to go, Gaki?" "Suna?" Jiraiya asked with a raised eyebrow, curious. Naruto shook his head. "Gaara's probably still recovering from having his demon sucked out of him. So they don't need me bothering them right now." Naruto smiled. "Then where?" "Maybe Kumo." Jiraiya smiled at his pupil. "Your father's homeland Not a bad choice, Gaki. You take care of yourself, alright." Jiraiya's expression turned serious. "Of course. Who do you think you're talking to here? A loud-mouthed brat." Jiraiya snickered when his student's eyes went white with anger. Naruto was about to say something when Tsunade hit Jiraiya again. "What was that for?" he asked. "Stop messing around. It's bad enough he's banished," she yelled with tears in her eyes. Jiraiya sighed again and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. He leveled to Naruto's eyes and smiled. "Don't get yourself killed out there. Your mom would have killed me if she found out." Jiraiya laughed. "Sure thing." Naruto pumped his left arm at his side. Now that Naruto was done, he exited the gate and looked at everyone. "Thank you all. I'll miss you," he said to them with a sad smile. He saw Hinata crying. He didn't know she cared that much about him. He turned around and headed in the direction of Kumo. With a shunshin he was gone. Naruto Uzumaki was now gone and the quietness began to settle in quickly for his friends. Sakura started to cry as well. Kakashi put a hand on her shoulder to assure her, but she kept crying. Her friend was gone, and she could do nothing to make him come back. The members that were still alive were in a dark meeting room. The platforms they were standing on were made of stone and looked like fingers. The fingers were from hands of what looked like a petrified demon. It had 9 eyes, and only 8 were open. This statue was where they kept the souls of the Biju that they've captured. The one they did capture already was the Ikibi no Shukaku. They were lucky they got that. Since then it's been tough to get any of the others without their home villages knowing. The increased security since the Shukaku's capture has made progress, less than extraordinary. "Leader Sama, I've got news on the Kyuubi kid," a plant-like man said in a holographic form. He looked like a humanoid Venus flytrap. He wore the same Akatsuki cloak like the other members around him. "What is it, Zetsu?" A man whose eyes had a ripple-like pattern around each of his pupils and had a light purple iris and sclera. His hair was similar to Naruto's but was a little longer and still spiky. He hid the bottom of his face under his holographic cloak. He was the leader of the outfit known as Akatsuki. "It seems that's he's been banished from Konoha," one half of Zetsu said. "Good. Now we can take him," the black half said. The leader closed his eyes to think about who to send. He figured Deidara and Tobi still needed work as a team, so maybe Itachi and Kisame. Itachi was very proficient in fighting the Kyuubi's container while they were extracting the Shukaku. He nodded to himself and opened his eyes, showing those same, mysterious, eyes again. Itachi and Kisame observe him for now. Is there anything else? Itachi just stood like the statue his was standing on, stoic and quiet. He had his eyes closed as if he was meditating. He was not in a holographic form like Zetsu and the leader. He really had nothing against Naruto, but he had no choice but to keep following Pain until Madara said not to. And then there was his little brother, Sasuke. He still had to deal with him. I think our fight should be somewhere we've both known, but where? I need to plan every detail. Kisame, on the other hand, looked excited to finally get some action. His Samahata had been itching to get some chakra from a Biju for a couple weeks now. He wondered just how much stronger the Kyuubi kid had gotten in the past 2 years since he last saw him. He chuckled to himself at the thought of defeating him. Hi, it seems that he's heading to Kumo. A masked hologram said. He adorned the cloak as well and seemed to be very dark-skinned. His name is Kakuzu. Kumo. Why the fuck would he go there? The silver-haired Hidan spoke. He was the most religious one of the group. Even though his religion involved killing people for a god named Jashin. Who knows, the blonde Deidara said. He's always been one that's unpredictable, right? Why should this be any different? Leader nodded and looked at the two he was planning on sending. Don't engage. I want to know why he was banished and, if you can, see if he's gotten stronger than before. If he has, report every detail. And watch for his friends. We don't need any more distractions. Hi, Kisame said. Let's go, Itachi-san. He formed the ram seal and they both shunshined away. The rest of you are dismissed. Find any information on the other Jinchuriki you can. We need what we can get. Leader said and his hologram disappeared. The others followed soon after. XXX. A dirt trail just nearing Kurigakure. Naruto was walking gingerly on the dirt beneath his feet. He tried not to get his new cloak dirty since it was his father's and he didn't want to ruin it on the first day. He looked up at the sky while holding his backpack straps and sighed. I wish I was never a Jinchuriki to begin with. He then stared back ahead of him and passed some merchants who were on the same path. They looked like they were headed to Konoha. Walking a few kilometers ahead, he came across a fork in the road. He bent over and read the sign. 2 days to get to the land of rice fields. 3 days to get to Kiri. He went on the right path and headed to Kiri. It was the country he had to get by first on his way to Kumo. But something was sort of bothering him, like he was being followed or something. Naruto quickly turned around to see if he could catch the stalker, but to no avail. He just saw an empty dirt road in front of him. He returned to walking the path to Kiri and shrugged off the weird feeling he was having. It's just my imagination, I guess. After a few hours he decided to rest. It was nighttime now and he didn't want to risk traveling at night. He set up camp to the side of the trail. He sent a clone, who quickly returned, to get some firewood and used flint to make a campfire. The blonde Jinchuriki sat in front of the fire, trying to keep warm. He let his mind wander as he gazed at the flames. He wondered if the Raikage would let him stay in Kumo or even let him become a ninja there. Even if he did become a ninja there, he wondered if he'd be accepted. He'd hate to have to live in yet another village that loathed him. The blonde Jinchuriki was brought out of his musing when he heard the bush behind him rustle. He quickly got up with a kunai drawn in his right hand. Who's there? For the next few minutes he heard nothing. But he wasn't one to just let things go. Then a rabbit jumped out of the bushes and ran across him to the other side of the trail and disappearing as it dived into the greenery. He smiled and shook his head. He put his kunai away and sat back down in front of the fire. He sighed happily and heated a cup of instant ramen. Within minutes it was ready and he put the cup to his nose and smelled it. Itadakimasu. That was cut short when a kunai went to his throat. Ninjas should never let their guard down. Naruto froze. Was the rabbit a distraction? Or was the assailant lucky to have rabbit running around at this hour? The blonde Namikaze quickly forgot about the rabbit and focused on more pressing matters. Who are you? Naruto asked. That is none of your concern, demon trash. Naruto's blood began to boil. He hated being called something he was not. And this guy was going to learn that the hard way. Die. The assassin plunged his knife into Naruto's throat and watched him bleed. He smiled beneath his mask. He threw the body to the ground and it popped into white smoke. What? Naruto had used the kawarimi to escape just before he was killed. He replaced himself with a clone he secretly created when the assassin got him. Naruto may not be book smart, but in a fight, he can be a certifiable genius. The assassin smirked beneath his mask. He's not that bad after all. He got out another kunai and waited for his foe's move. He was looking around slowly and keeping his senses sharp. Meanwhile, our lovable blonde was watching the man from the trees near the trail. He noticed the man was wearing an Anbu mask but didn't recognize the animal. What's even more confusing, these guys answer to Ba-chan. She wouldn't send one out to kill me, so either he's working by himself or someone else is pulling his strings. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto yelled, putting his fingers in a cross form. Soon the clones surrounded the masked assailant. The man laughed. I heard about your extraordinary chakra reserves, but this is incredible. You might just be a challenge for me. He got into a fighting stance. The clones charged and dogpiled him. They stayed like that for a while until each one started to disappear. One by one they were all gone and the man stood in a cloud of smoke made from the Kage Bunshin. He began searching for the real one. His eyes widened and suddenly looked up. Naruto was free falling down at him with a Rasengan in his hand. The clone that made the Rasengan grabbed Naruto's arm and threw him towards the man, gaining an incredible momentum. Rasengan. The jutsu crashed into the land as the assassin dodged by jumping away. Naruto stood in a small crater in a ready stance, anticipating any attack. Doden. Ganchuso. Naruto felt the earth beneath him begin to rumble. Out of nowhere, spikes made of earth protruded from the ground in an attempt to skewer him. The assassin appeared in front of his work. He began to laugh at his victory. Now I can report back to Danzo-sama. The man's eyes widened when he saw Naruto in the middle of his jutsu in a awkward position. Naruto was barely able to escape death by being flexible. He twisted his body in places he didn't know he could just to dodge the attack. Naruto's eyes went white and he yelled at the man. Hey, shithead, I'm not out yet. And if you think I didn't hear that, you're badly mistaken. His face looking more serious than he usually is. With just a small burst of the Kyuubi's chakra, Naruto was able to break free from the spikes and dashed at the man with blinding speed. But the man foresaw his attack and parried a punch by Naruto. But what he didn't know was the clone Naruto made behind him. Kage Bunshin without seals. That's right. More Narutos appeared as the man found he couldn't move since the original had his hand locked in tight with both his hands. Time to finish him off, guys. They all nodded and each made a Rasengan. They smiled victoriously at the man because they knew they had won. I don't know who you are, but prepare to die. The Narutos uttered a battle cry and drove their jutsu at the man. He screamed in pain and flew away from the crowd, hitting tree after tree along the way. When he did finally stop, his eyes were rolled to the back of his head and blood flowed down his neck. His mask was cracked and the man's identity was remained a mystery. Naruto walked closer after dispelling his clones. Now to find out who this bastard is. Maybe he has something on Danzo too. He was now inches from the assassin. He took off the mask and as soon as he did, his body combusted from blue flames. What the fuck? Naruto blinked. XXX. Danzo's secret hideout. In his office. Danzo sat in anticipation from the Anbu route he sent to dispose of the Kyuubi container. He knew the man to be a skilled Chunin ranked ninja. He believed that he'd be more than enough to handle the talentless brat. He was broken from concentration when his door slammed open and another root operative stepped into the office that mimicked the Hokage's. The operative kneeled in front of the old war hawk. Danzo-sama, we've got bad news. The tracker we've placed on Ryusuke has gone off of the grid. Maybe the Kyuubi brat got lucky. And no, his chakra signature is gone as well. I think he's gone, sir. Danzo gritted his teeth with his mouth closed to make sure he didn't show any response. He nodded to his operative, telling him to leave. Hi. The man disappeared. The old war hawk then slammed a fist onto his desk. Damn that brat. I underestimated him, and he makes a fool of one of my ninja. I'll make him pay dearly. XXX. The next day, Naruto was walking very slowly. He had bags under his eyes from lack of sleep. He was afraid to just in case he was attacked again. He yawned into his hand and smacked his lips together a few times. I'm getting tired of wasting time. Let's pick up the pace. He began to concentrate chakra into his legs and sprinted ahead. Now that's more like it. He laughed. Thanks to his stamina, he was able to keep up his pace for hours. He stopped when he finally reached the village he helped save from Gato's evil clutches. He breathed in the fresh air and exhaled in a relaxing manner. He crossed the bridge that was named after him with a smile. Once he read the sign before crossing it, he was happy that something was named in his honor. Once reaching the village, he stopped at an inn. He didn't go inside, he stood in front of the building. Should I? Nah, I can probably stay a couple days with Tsunami-chan, the old man, and Inari. He smiled. He walked on and soon found his way to the seasoned bridge builder's home. Naruto knocked on the door a few times and waited for an answer. The door opened to reveal a raven-haired woman stepped out of the house. She wore a green, loose shirt and loose black khakis. Her feet were heeled shoes that were nearly as black as her hair. She looked at the young man in front of her with a raised eyebrow. Can I help you? Naruto just grinned at Tsunami and poked his chest with his thumb. Don't ya recognize me, Tsunami-chan? She blinked and thought she heard that voice somewhere before. She looked closer at the man. Blonde hair, blue eyes, lots of orange. Wait, orange? She gasped. Naruto-san? She asked, surprised. He rubbed the back of his head, laughing and grinning. Yep. Long time no see. She smiled and hugged him. It's good to see you. Inari would have been glad to see you. She looked sad. Would have been. Is he somewhere out of Kiri or something? Naruto asked with his own brow raised. She shook her head slowly. Come in, I'll tell you. Naruto followed her in the house and took a seat along with her at the dining table he remembered eating at all those years ago with Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi. Back when Team 7 was complete. Tsunami looked at the table with a sad expression. Inari, he died a year after you and the rest of Team 7 left us. He suddenly got an illness that not even our best doctor could have cured. She began to cry. Naruto was heartbroken. He had missed the little kid that was so innocent. Hell, he was even younger than Naruto when he got here. And he was gone. That was something that Naruto could not comprehend. He kept wanting to live another day so that he could see his Ni-san again. She began to sob. Naruto hung his head. I'm so sorry. What about the old man? Tsunami sniffled and regained her composure while wiping her tears. He should be back in a few minutes. He just had to do some business. She said, trying to sound not so sad. But she couldn't help it. Inari was her son after all. He had left besides her father, and he won't be around forever. She missed the boy that would play with her and make her laugh. She couldn't help it now. She could only let time heal her deep wound. Naruto sighed in relief. That's good. I'm really sorry about Inari, Tsunami-chan. He said with sadness in his voice. In the short time he was there, the kid had grown on him. He did feel like an older brother to the little guy. Inari was the closest thing Naruto had to a little brother at that. It's okay. You didn't know. He would have been happy that you came. Now, why are you here in our little village? And where's your headband? She asked, changing the subject on purpose. Naruto sighed and looked at her. Let's start from the beginning. After explaining the whole thing to her, she offered Naruto a room and he tried to refuse, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. So the blonde Namikaze stayed in the village for around 3 days before he left. He got to meet a lot of the villagers and saw the old bridge builder again. They were happy to see each other. He also visited the grave of Inari, which was made right underneath the Great Naruto Bridge. Seeing it made him cry. During those few days, Naruto noticed that the village placed a monument at its center. The statue displayed Team 7 in their glory days. When Naruto asked who made it, he was told an old stonemason made it before he left. Apparently, the stonemason was around when the village was saved. So, in honor of the shinobi team, he made the statue. Naruto was happy about that. When it was time to go, Naruto was left with the whole village waving at him with smiling faces. I wish I got this when I left Konoha. He thought sadly and pressed on. XXX. 3 days later in Kumo. Naruto was now in front of the gate that blocked him from either becoming a ninja again or live there peacefully. He hoped on the shinobi option. He had too much energy to just sit around and do nothing. He almost walked in when he was stopped by 3 ninja. 2 were female and the last one was male. The one ahead of the group, obviously the leader, looked at Naruto with a confused look. She had blonde hair that was put into a long ponytail by a tight bandage. Her black eyes were staring at Naruto, but he didn't feel any hostility towards him. She wore mostly black and her arms were bandaged. Her Kumo headband was on her forehead like most ninja. Lastly, were the fingerless gloves that she wore. What's your name, kid? The blonde asked him. Naruto remained calm. He didn't want to provoke any ninja, and being outnumbered didn't help. Namikaze Naruto. He said smiling. Oi, you sure that the censor was right? He said there was someone that had even higher chakra than B-sensei headed for the village. The silver-haired ninja said. He looked very relaxed while sucking on a lollipop he had in his mouth. The blonde in front of him blinked a couple times. She walked back to her group and they began to talk. Naruto couldn't hear a word. So, who is he? The red-haired Karui asked. A spy. Yugito shook her head. That smile of his was genuine. He didn't lie. I remember being told to watch for a Naruto Uzumaki, not for Namikaze. Maybe we should take him to the wreckage just in case. Or else he might get so mad that he'll level all of Kumo with a blinding rage. Omoi suggested, making Karui shake her head at the ridiculous idea. Yugito nodded at the idea. She walked back over to Naruto and looked at him again. You're coming with us, she said. Naruto got frantic for a second. Hold on. What did I do? Nothing. We're taking you to the wreckage. She replied casually. Naruto sighed in relief and wiped some sweat off of his forehead. Then he smiled at Yugito. That's great. I was going to see him anyway. She gestured for him to follow and they walked slowly through the village. Naruto quickly obliged in excitement. This might have been his only chance to live in peace. While he walked, he saw people looking at him and whispering some things. But the looks he got weren't of hate and malice, they were of curiosity and question. He saw a few old people bow at him and that made him blush in embarrassment. He wasn't expecting that. They all finally walked into the wreckage's office where they saw him signing papers as his assistant kept giving him paper after paper after paper until his brow twitched in annoyance. He slammed his large fists on his desk and stood up. Enough. I'm taking a break. But Wreckage-sama, these need to be filled before tomorrow morning. I don't care. And stop calling me that. He noticed his Kumo ninja and a stranger walk in. He sat back down and studied the stranger. He looked familiar to the dark-skinned Kage. Who is this you brought, Yugito? He asked in a demanding tone. We found him about to enter the village. He only told us his name, Namikaze Naruto-san. A's eyes widened at Namikaze. He hadn't heard that name in a little over 20 years. And he wasn't even Wreckage back then. That's impossible. The Namikaze clan was eradicated here during the attack from Iwa that was one of the catalysts to the Third Great Shinobi World War. It's impossible to have one here. Naruto clenched his fists at what he heard. So Iwa is responsible for my clan's destruction. They're going to pay for that. He then relaxed his anger and looked at the muscled Kage. I am Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. I am a former Konoha ninja and came here to stay in the birthplace of my father. And who was your father? I asked. His name was Minato Namikaze, but you all know him as Konoha's Yellow Flash and the Yondaime Hokage. That caused everyone to gasp. I smirked. I thought you looked familiar. I forgot that there was a kid that was sent off by the clan to help relations with Konoha. He began looking through the mess of papers that was on his desk. Naruto raised an eyebrow at what the Raikage was doing. By the way, kid, don't call me Sama. Just A-san will do fine. Never really liked the formal name anyway. He laughed. Naruto laughed along with him. He liked this guy. He seemed to be the type that didn't care about the formalities of being the Kage of Kumo. Naruto figured all the Kages were supposed to have a diplomatic disposition. Tsunade wasn't really like that, but she did like being called Sama all the time. Aha, here it is. I said, holding a paper with the Konoha leaf symbol on it. He reread the letter from his fellow village leader. To the Raikage, I am Tsunade, the Hokage of Konoha. This letter is to inform you that due to recent conditions, one of our shinobi, Uzumaki Naruto, will be heading to your village. He was banished by our council for a tenant problem. This was not my decision but that of the fire daimyos. And you know a daimyo's decision cannot be changed. So, since he is no longer on our roster as a shinobi, he had told us that he will be going to the place where his father was born. Please take care of him. He is like a grandson to me and I'd hate to have to go over there if he's being mistreated. He should explain any details that you may have questions about. He's got blonde hair, blue eyes, and 3 whiskers marks on each cheek. He is wearing an orange-black jumpsuit under a white cloak with red flames licking the bottom of it. I don't know when he'll get there, but be expecting him within 2 weeks at most. Please let him stay. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. From the Hokage. I looked at Naruto. Yep, definitely the kid she described. He set the paper down in the messy stack he had. Now you've got to answer me a few questions. I said seriously. He saw Naruto suddenly straighten up. What is this tenant that your Hokage mentioned in her letter? Naruto hung his head before looking back at everyone. The ninja he met were standing next to the Raikage all of a sudden. Well, how do I put this? I'm the container, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He closed his eyes as if expecting someone to thrash him. He knew Kumo didn't have anything against it, but he didn't know how well they liked demon containers. When he heard the loud laugh from the Raikage, he looked at the dark-skinned man in confusion. That makes 3 for our village. I don't fucking believe it. Raikage-sama. Language. The assistant scolded. I just laughed. 3. Naruto wondered. What was the Raikage talking about? So I guess we have something in common, Naruto-san. Yugito said to him, smiling. She didn't know that she'd meet the container of the most powerful demon in shinobi history. But now it got her interested into the younger blonde. So you're? Naruto said to her. Yugito nodded. I am the container of the Nibi no Bakunako, Yugito ni. Good to meet you, she said happily. You'll meet our other Jinchuriki soon enough. But when you do, be careful. He can be a little hyperactive. I said to Naruto, trying to describe his brother. Naruto just laughed and rubbed his nose. I'm a pretty hyperactive guy too. I'll be fine. The others just sweat dropped at that statement. They wondered if another hyperactive container would cause them more trouble than he's worth. Now that is over with. What rank were you in Konoha? Naruto hung his head again. Genin, he said in a low tone. Really? Yugito yelled, surprised. Naruto nodded. I failed the first Chunin exam I took and I was out of the village on a training trip with my sensei for 2 years, so I stayed a genin. He explained. I thought about this for a few minutes. He could tell the boy was at least at high Chunin level or low Jonin, but should he make the kid a Chunin or a genin? He rubbed the bridge of his nose in frustration. He finally sighed and shrugged. He was going to give him the test. Alright, Naruto. Here in Kumo we have a test. I want you to fight against one of my Chunin and see how well you do. Winning or losing won't matter. I want to see how well your ability is. Deal. Naruto grinned. You got it. I'll make Chunin for sure. That made a smile. The boy was confident. That was a good trait, sometimes. He hoped Naruto wasn't the overconfident type, but I didn't think he was. Yugito thought the possible new shinobi was amusing. He had a spark to him that was different from B. Maybe it was because he didn't rap. I'm sure you'll be living in your clan's estates, so I'll have these three show you to it. But, can you please do something about those clothes while you're about? I asked, pointing at the jumpsuit. Naruto looked at his clothes. What's wrong with them? He blinked. They practically scream, "Here I am. Come kill me," Karui said abruptly. The statement made the Raikage laugh. Naruto hung his head. Alright, I guess it's something I'll have to deal with if I'm living here. He sighed and straightened up. Let's go shopping. He yelled a little too excited. Oi, wait up. Omoi yelled, trying to catch up. Karui and Yugito stayed behind. Karui sighed. Yugito, give him this. I'm sure he'll need it. I said and handed her an envelope. She smiled and nodded. They left to catch up with the boys. Do you think that I made a good decision, Haruna-san? I asked his assistant. She only smiled at him. I think he may be useful to Kumo. He doesn't seem the type to betray the village he belongs to. But, I do worry what side he chooses if we get in conflict with Konoha. Besides that, no, I don't think you did, Raikage-sama. I told you to stop calling me that. Call you what, Raikage-sama? She raised an eyebrow, looking like she didn't do anything wrong. That, I don't follow. I was sweating now. He couldn't tell if she was joking or not. But he started laughing anyway. He loved how there were so many different people there were in his village. Are my clothes really that bad? Naruto asked as they walked through the bustling streets known as the shopping district. There were many people and stores on either side of him. He was amazed that they had more variety of clothing stores than Konoha. And what was better, was that none of them even glanced at Naruto. He liked not being glared at. It felt good. Of course. We'll have to do something about the cloak too. Yugito said as they walked into a store. This store was for Kumo's shinobi, but they also had civilian clothes as well. Yugito began looking around for clothes that would suit Kumo's new shinobi. No way. I'm not getting rid of this. It's my father's. Naruto yelled a little angrily. Relax, we can change the color. White is too noticeable, so we'll ask a tailor to do that. It'll still be your father's but with your own style. The older blonde said, smiling. Well, okay. Naruto was defeated. Yugito began looking around the store and slowly picked out a few clothes. Soon, she had a small pile in both of her arms. Here, try these on. I don't know your sizes, so I don't know if they fit. She giggled. Naruto nodded and went into a changing room that wasn't occupied. He tried on different clothes, most of which were small, until he found some that actually fit. He looked at the mirror in the room to see what he looked like. He wore a black muscle shirt that hugged tightly to show off his build. He also wore white-colored arm bands that covered his forearm. They each had the Kumo symbol on the back hand of the protective armor. Naruto chose the loose-fitting black khakis as his pants since the others were too small. On his feet were the same type of shoes, but were black as well. I look like I'm going to a funeral. Naruto shrugged. He figured it was better than nothing. He walked out to let everyone see. Well, the others, well, the girls, had one word come to mind: hot. But they didn't let that show to someone younger than they are. Karui was the first to speak her opinion. Looking good, new guy. Now you look much better without all the orange. She praised and he blushed at the compliment. Thanks. But what about my cloak? We have to buy these first. Come on, Yugito said, and they all went to the clerk. Naruto was surprised he got all of the clothes at the same price and no get stiffed. His face saddened at how his old village treated him. What's wrong with you? Karui asked. He shook his head. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he caught a virus that'll spread around the village and cause an end to Kaminari no Kuni. Omoi said, over-exaggerating things again. Karui just slapped her forehead. Only you would think up something so ridiculous. Naruto just laughed at the pair's antics. You two make a good couple. Karui was about to hit Omoi when she heard that. She glared at Naruto and he was scared of her gaze to say the least. We're not together, you baka. He's my cousin for Kami's sake. Naruto just scratched the back of his head and laughed nervously. Sorry, didn't know. But what's wrong, Naruto-san? Yugito asked, remembering his look of shock and then sadness. It's nothing. Oh, I'm going to go look over there. Naruto ran off. Yugito sighed. He remembered something that made him like that. I wonder what it was though. After Naruto was done browsing, they went to a store mainly for shinobi. When they entered through the cloth of the store, their first sight were large weapons hanging off the walls. Axes, hammers, swords, kamas, sai, and many other types were everywhere. Naruto looked amazed at all the weapons. But his natural senses went back into gear and stayed on his toes. Being thrown out of stores kind of do that to someone like him. But after he followed the Kumo ninja around the large interior of the store, he relaxed. Maybe I'm overreacting. People here don't know me, so how would they know what I am? He laughed to himself quietly. Ah, here we are, Yugito said as they were now in the katana section. What are we here for? I thought I was going to get my cloak tailored. Naruto asked. We're getting to that too, but we need to find you your sword. She said, smiling to him. Naruto merely tilted his head to the side with a raised eyebrow. But I don't use swords. You will if you're going to be a ninja here. Omoi said and showed Naruto that they were all carrying swords. It's optional to carry, but you still need to learn the style. You'll find it's very useful. Well, okay, I guess. So which one do I pick? Naruto asked. He began searching through the selection of swords that the store provided. There were many different types of them. Bakken, for practice, katanas, nodashi, a two-handed long sword, and others. If you have a question about any, just look them up on Wikipedia. It shows a picture for the sword so you know what it looks like. Naruto stopped in front of one of the katana swords. This one seems different, he thought as he looked at it in his glass case. The blade was black but still looked durable and deadly. The handle was a dark red with the tip a shining gold. When he looked closer, he saw that the blade had kanji written on it. He couldn't tell if it was a seal or not. It's kind of hard to read on black. Looks like you found one, Yugito said, and he nodded dumbly as she walked up to him. Karui and Omoi were looking at possible replacements. She saw the sword he was looking at and was surprised at his pick. That belongs to one of the Namikaze elders. He was said to have been a very proficient kenjutsu master. Yeah, but I don't think I can afford it. I'm using reserves right now. Naruto laughed, scratching the back of his head. She put a hand on his shoulder and he looked at her. You didn't think that the money we're using is our own personal money, do you? It's all paid for by the rakeage. Naruto smiled widely and yelled to the clerk to get the sword. The man walked up to him, and the closer he got, the taller and bigger he got. When he got up to Naruto, he was towering, both blondes, and looked to have as much muscle as a. He had a long ponytail of black hair and a short beard that was the same color. His glasses shimmered so his eyes weren't visible. Think Tessai from Bleach but without the mustache and with a beard instead. Ah, Guro-san. I thought you gave the store to your brother. Yugito said, smiling to him, not intimidated at all. The man named Guro just laughed at what she said. And miss being able to scare the shit out of non-shinobi customers. Forget it. He then turned his attention to the swords that the young Namikaze wanted. Sorry kid, but that glass is seal protected. Only the clan from which it was made can open it. What clan is that? Naruto asked. The Namikaze, of course. They were some of the greatest kenjutsu masters in all of Lightning. Guro said proudly. Maybe because he actually sold some of the swords they used to the clan. Oh, Naruto bit his thumb and wiped it over the glass and then placed his palm on it. The glass glowed and, in a bright flash, the protection was gone. Naruto looked at Guro, who had an astounded look, and smiled widely. Looks like I'm one of the clan. He laughed and picked up the sword to check if it suited him. Guro and Yugito gave him some space as he did so. Naruto swung it, sliced the air, and found that the sword was perfect for him. It was just the right length and was really light, so he only needed one hand. I'll take it. Guro put the sword into its sheath, which was black with a bright yellow kanji written that said, Namikaze, and brought it up to his counter. The price turned out to be about 100,000 ryo. It would have been higher, but he wouldn't let the boy buy his own clan's swords at full price. He couldn't have that at all. Naruto and the other Kumo nin thanked him and left the store. Come back soon. I get new weapons every couple of weeks. They heard just before walking out. They waved back and now headed to one last spot. The tailor's. When they walked across the district, Naruto looked in amazement at the many more shops around. There were places for, well, anything. The only thing that was missing was a red light district, and it would have been just like Konoha. Hey, want to have some fun, cutie? A woman wearing a kimono, that revealed a lot of cleavage, asked Naruto. Naruto's sweat dropped. Yup. Just like home. Damn it. I need to stop calling it that. It's not home anymore, not after what they did. He shook his head at the woman, who puffed up her cheeks and pouted. She didn't take rejection well, apparently. They finally entered their chosen destination, and although it wasn't the biggest shop in Kumo, it looked nice. There were many different styles of clothes and dyes and books for dyeing said clothes. All in all, it was just the place for the Namikaze's cloak. Welcome, the bald clerk said to them. How may I help you today? We need to get this Gaki's cloak dyed so he doesn't get killed. Karui said, pointing her thumb at Naruto. Great. Now she sounds like Ba-chan. He thought, folding his arms. The clerk went around his counter and studied the cloak. He put a hand on his chin and went around Naruto. This looks very familiar. Where did you get it? He asked Naruto. My dad left it for me before I was banished. Who was your dad? The Yondaime Hokage. He was a Namikaze. Naruto said simply. The clerk blinked. Namikaze. He shouted loudly. Almost as loud as and that's loud. Is there a problem? Yugito asked. She thought that the clerk had some sort of problem with the clan, so she put a hand in her kunai pouch just in case he did something. Right away, Namikaze-sama. The clerk yelled and went into the door behind his counter after nearly tearing the cloak off. Black with red flames, please. Yugito yelled before he disappeared. Naruto just blinked at what the man did, confused at being called Sama. He had never been called that before and was just called that by an old man. What just happened? He seems to be a fan of your clan, Gaki. You didn't forget that your clan was really famous here, did you? Karui asked, her hands on her hips, raising an eyebrow. A few minutes passed and the tailor came back with Naruto's new cloak. The white was replaced with black and the flames were now a dark red. Naruto put it on and thought it suited his new outfit. Anything else I can help with? He needs to be fitted for a flak jacket too. Yugito said, and Naruto looked at her like she just grew another head. I'm not even a certified shinobi here yet. Why do I need a flak jacket? Naruto asked. Think of it as an incentive to work hard and pass then. She said to him, smiling. Follow me please, Namikaze-sama. The clerk said to him and Naruto followed. You can just call me Naruto, you know. The blonde said to odd clerk. Sorry, but no can do. Your clan helped me start this store and even saved my daughter from enemy ninja during the last war. It's the least I can do to repay your clan back. He said, holding a strip of measuring tape to Naruto. Now hold still. It didn't take long before Naruto now donned a new white flak jacket with the straps going over his shoulders. He had it on under the cloak. When he walked out, a lot of the civilians were looking at him. Naruto just smiled at them while rubbing the back of his head and waved. The girls his age were blushing and now talking amongst themselves on the new boy that was in the village. Yugito felt a little jealousy for some reason but shrugged it off and noticed a blushing blonde next to her. She just giggled and put a hand on his shoulder. Come on, lover boy. We need to take you to your estate. Naruto blushed more at the lover boy part and nodded in a Hinata-like manner. He soon composed himself and followed his companions to his new home. His mind began to wonder how it would be if the estate was big or what it had already. As they walked to their destination, Karui and Omoi kept talking about their leader. Someone named Samui. That got Naruto's attention. Karui hit Omoi for him commenting on how big a difference of cup sizes the two were. Baka, was all she said to him about that statement and hit Omoi on the head again. Who is Samui? Another Kumo ninja? Naruto asked curiously. Omoi nodded while rubbing the bump on his head. She's the Jonin of our team. We're only Chunin so she was placed as leader by the Raikage. I can't believe she made Jonin before us. Maybe she has some hidden bloodline that was kept secret from us and may be as powerful as a tailed beast. He began to rant. Naruto laughed at the slightly older man. There were some interesting characters in Kumo, and he liked them. It'd be boring if they were all like Sai. He thought as they strolled through town. Shut up, Omoi. We would know if Samui-sensei would have won or not. She is skilled though, Karui said in a thinking pose. She was remembering all the times the busty blonde had helped train her in Kenjutsu and Raiden Jutsu. But then she started to remember on how Killer Bee-sensei would always show her up but she would only use her frustration on him to get stronger. Yeah, you'd like her Naruto-san. She comes from an unknown clan that came here to Kumo. Hey, who wants to bet the first thing he notices are her? Yugito asked Omoi and Karui. The two put 200 ryo on that and Yugito bet 200 that he wouldn't. Naruto just laughed at the whole thing. That was when they were now standing at Naruto's new home. To say the least, the estate was huge. It seemed to be very spacious and homey. They toured the house and Naruto liked what was around. It had a fully stocked kitchen, large training ground, and it even had its own onsen. There were doors that had seals that read, Namikaze only, and seemed to be trapped if anyone but his clan entered. He decided to look inside them after the tour. After a complete tour of everything and everywhere, well except for the sealed rooms, in the estate the Kumo nin bade him farewell and left. But only after Yugito took the flak jacket from Naruto to give him an incentive to pass the test. You'll get it back when you pass, she said and they all shunshined away. Naruto turned back around to the inside of his new mansion and sighed in content. Finally, somewhere to live where I'm not nearly killed. Huh, I wonder what she meant by when. He laughed and went into the mansion. XXX. Konoha Council's courtroom. Tsunade was in the middle of the courtroom being questioned by the civilian council. She sighed because she knew this had to do with Naruto's heritage. She folded her arms under her and stared at the old geezers. Let's get this over with. Homura and Kaharu were staring down at the blonde Hokage. Homura was the one who was mostly angered that a demon would dare wear the cloak of the man who defeated it. We want to interrogate Uzumaki Naruto about him wearing the cloak of the Yondaime. He said to her in his business tone. The man was not pleased. Not one bit. Mostly because some of their ninja patrolling the border found a dead, masked shinobi near a campsite. He knew the demon was responsible. It's simple why he's wearing it. It was given to him by his father. Tsunade said with a smile that bordered on a smirk. The rest of the civilian council gasped at what they heard. Impossible. One of the lower clan heads, namely a ninja by the name of Jin, yelled. There's no way that demon is the son of the Yondaime. Blasphemy. Shut up. Tsunade yelled at them angrily. You're all blinded by your conceited ways of thinking and misguided views that you can't see the fact that Naruto is in fact Minato's son. Minato would never have asked someone else to give up their child and live the way you all treat him, her. So he used his own son for the jutsu that cost him his own life. If it wasn't for Naruto, then you'd all be dead and I'd be sitting in Tanzaku town drinking sake and gambling to my heart's contempt. You will not speak to the Sioux, Homura was about to say when he was overcome by a wave of killer intent courtesy of the busty Hokage. No, you shut up, Homura. She yelled and then pointed at both Koharu and Homura with her right index finger. It's because of you two that he was never allowed to have a family. It was you two who made him a pariah and would take any chance to have him either assassinated or banished. Unfortunately, you succeeded in the latter. And even if he did get a home, she turned her attention to other council members. You all would drive him away, beat him to an inch to his death, overcharge him, sell him lower quality products, and the list goes on. If I was Kami, you'd all be damned to the deepest level of hell I could think of for what you all did to that poor boy. He had no choice about becoming a Jinchuriki and neither did you. Tell me, Yukari-san. She said to a man with a white robe with a large shuriken insignia on the front of it. He had short, combed dark brown hair. Hi, Hokage-sama. If the Kyuubi attacked the night of Tenten's birth and you agreed for the Yondaime to use her, would you do everything in your power to help her live a normal life? For her not to become a pariah of Konoha? She asked in a serious expression. Why yes. I would never allow that. She's my daughter. Then why should Naruto be any different? Because he was cursed to have the Kyuubi in him. You should all know by now that he could not control the beast when Sakura got hurt and when he came back to the village. What was he like? The Hokage asked as she scanned the faces of the council members. That doesn't matter. That demon deserved what he got. And I say that if he truly is of Namikaze blood, then all of his belongings should go to the village, namely the Uchiha when he gets back. A white-haired man yelled. This man's name is Hakido, a very profound demon hater. Come back. You honestly expect him to come back after all this time? He went to Orochimaru. No one leaves when they join that snake. Tsunade said with gloom in her voice. Then it should still go to the village. Homura yelled. Then all you'll get is an empty apartment and some instant ramen. Tsunade laughed. The mansion the Yondaime used to live in along with his wife is locked by blood and he's not here to open it. Why is that? Oh right. You banished him. Now see here, what right do you have to keep the place locked up? The ninja Jin asked. What right do any of you have to take it away? You know what? I'm tired and I don't have time for any more of this bullshit. Here is Naruto's birth certificate and who his parents were. If any of you need me, I'll be in my office drinking sake. And with that the blonde Sanin left the council chambers. That bitch. She thinks that just cause what she says is true that I'll go ahead and change my mind. Not even close. If he returns, his throat will meet the end of my blade. Then I'll be renowned as a hero in Konoha. Jin thought and chuckled to himself evilly. Homura was having a hard time with Tsunade. He clenched his fists under his seat so not to show his anger. But he quickly calmed down. Just wait until Danzu's plan takes effect, you demon-loving whore. Then you'll not be a problem in Konoha's new regime, where I am a trusted advisor and Danzo reigns supreme. XXX. Meanwhile Orochimaru's hideout. You seem to be doing well, Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru said as they had just finished fighting each other for his training. They both stood in the darkness of the training room. They could barely even see each other. But they could sense each other's presence. The raven-haired Avenger grunted and got out of his fighting stance. He heard Orochimaru coughing as the snake slithered away for an unknown reason. Now that he was alone, he began planning on strategies he could use against Itachi, his traitorous older brother. But no matter how many times he came up with something, he found that Itachi would counter it with his Mangekyo. The only way to be equal to him would be to get the next stage of his own Sharingan. But to do that, he would have to kill Naruto. And that would mean having to go back to the village he no longer cared for. Sasuke was brought out of his reverie when Kabuto and Orochimaru came back. The snake looked even paler than usual, if that was possible. Sasuke just crossed his arms and waited for what they had to say. It seems we've discovered something quite interesting, Sasuke-san. The four-eyed medic nin said. Your old friend, Naruto, was banished from Konoha a couple of weeks ago. But now he resides in Kumo. Sasuke smirked at that. He had nothing against Kumo, so that would mean it was the perfect chance for him to try and kill Naruto to get the Mangekyo and get even more powerful. Something you want to tell us? Kabuto asked, fixing his glasses. I wish to go to Kumo. Sasuke said in monotone. And why is that? Orochimaru asked with curiosity. Because that is where Naruto is. I need to kill him to get stronger. The snake's mouth grew into an eerie grin that would give a chill to anyone else's spine. He knew his new vessel would be even more powerful if he had the Mangekyo. Very well, Sasuke-kun. We'll leave in a week. Why are you making me wait? Sasuke asked with anger. It takes time to go into a country with as much military forces as Konoha. We need to be prepared for anything. Orochimaru said, and he disappeared into darkness. Sasuke was left alone since Kabuto had gone too. He went to his room and sat on the edge of his bed and thought how much stronger the blonde might have gotten. But then he just smirked confidently. It's just the Dobi. It'll be easy to kill him. XXX. 3 days later, Resident District. Naruto sneezed. Someone must be talking about me. He thought as he rubbed the bridge between his nostrils. He was walking around the village to get a feel for it and know the layout. The people were very nice to him as well, which was a bonus. He knew that their kindness wasn't false since they didn't even know him, so there was no way they would hate him. He was taking a break from his training, much to his own ire, but he could not continue to hurt his body every day. Even ninja need to take breaks after all. He noticed that the girls his age would always come up to him and try to flirt with him, but, of course, he was oblivious to such things. And people wonder why Hinata and him never got together. Then his thoughts changed to his training. He was progressing on learning the Hiraishin, but he couldn't seem to manage to get exactly on the spot of the seal. After days he needed a break, hence the walk. But there was another reason to why he was walking around. The Raikage had finally called him in for the challenge he was to take to become a shinobi in Kumo. When he got there, he had just witnessed the dark tan Kage break his desk in half with one arm. Enough paperwork. Can't you do anything else besides bring me paper? He yelled at his assistant, Mabui. Sorry, sir. But there are a lot of mission reports to be looked over, as well as the documents for the possible alliance with one of the lesser nearby countries. She said to him in her business-like tone. A just sighed and sat back down. He saw the blonde in front of him and smiled. Well, hello there, Naruto. How are you doing today? Good, I guess. Could be better if the fangirls don't chase me today. The Raikage laughed at that. Now then, it appears we have 2 things to talk about. The first being your opponent for your initiation into Kumo as a ninja, and the second being what you did to the training grounds of your estate. What the hell happened? A yelled. I was training, of course. Naruto grinned widely, causing A and Mabui to sweat drop. But if you want specifics, then I've been training in both my mother and father's jutsu. I understand the Hiraishin, but what about you cutting a mountain that nearly took out the shopping district? Mabui asked with a brow raised. Oh, that. I was training to control my affinity better. My dad left in his scrolls that I would have to resort to a mountain if I wasn't near any waterfalls. Naruto laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his head. You're lucky it wasn't the whole mountain, just the tip. Or else it might have toppled over. Have you had any progress with any of your other jutsu? I was curious. Coming from Namikaze blood meant that you had to be strong. So he wanted to know if he was. Not much. I learned a few Fuden jutsu, a Raiden and a Suiten. My dad said he was skilled in Ranten, but I'm not sure there's anyone here that can use that. I could use the help in learning it. The blonde Jinchuriki crossed his arms in frustration of that. I laughed a bit. You're lucky. I know someone here to help you, but that's if you pass my test. Bring it on. I'll take down anyone you put me up against. Naruto yelled proudly. A laughed loud this time. Confident. An admirable trait, but can lead to someone's downfall should it go to your head. He said to the blonde seriously. I have decided that your opponent will be. Just then the door opened to reveal a bald man in sports sunglasses. His headband had a white cloth, where he wore around his forehead. He had on a black shirt with a one-strap Kumo flak jacket over it. His pants were a dark gray that nearly bordered on black. He wore regular shinobi sandals. Ah, Jay. The Raikage got up and his giant hand hit Jay's back, causing him to cough. He laughed while trying to regain his breath. You called for me, san. Right. Said sitting down. I need you to fight this little guy right here. He pointed to Naruto. Little. Jay looked at the spiky-haired blonde standing next to him. He looked back at the Raikage with a raised eyebrow. Why? I want to see if he is Kumo material. You're a proficient chunin, so if you win, I might consider promoting you to Jonin. Offered. Jay immediately perked up to the idea. I gladly accept. I'll make you proud, sir. Good. Then let's head to where you'll be fighting. Walked out the door and led them to the Kumo Coliseum. This place was a huge, wide circular structure with no roof. It was held by pillars that circled the entire monument. $5 to see who guesses what this is in real life. When Naruto entered, he saw crowds of people yelling from the seats they were in inside the Coliseum. Most of the population was dark-skinned, something that didn't surprise him. What did surprise him were the signs that some people made. Some were for him while others were against him and going for Jay. He smiled at that. Oh, and just as a note in case anyone asks, the Raikage didn't tell Jay so that he would be surprised. But the people found out and got prepared. There you go. People of Kumo. You are here today to bear witness a fight that is very rare for us to see. A namikaze in action. Yelled after the crowd grew quiet. This young man right here is the last living member of the clan and has decided to make our home his home. But, he also wants to be a ninja here as well. The crowd began to whisper and murmur. So, I set up a little test. He will fight my top chunin to gain acceptance. Now then, let's get this started. Yelled and the crowd cheered. He disappeared and left the two alone. Naruto stared at the man in glasses. Good luck, Jay-san. And got into his fighting stance. The dark-skinned man smiled, nodded, and went into his own. Begin. As soon as they heard that, they ran at each other with a kunai. The blades clashed and they were inches away from each other's faces. You're pretty strong for a kid, Jay said to the blonde. Naruto just smiled. Deception is a ninja's greatest enemy, he said and poofed out of existence. That made Jay shocked. When did he have time to create a Kage Bunshin? I didn't even see him use the seal. I'll have to watch out for this guy, he thought as he stood in a ready stance while moving his eyes from side to side. The crowd grew quiet to see what was going to happen. The chunin had no idea where his opponent was, it was like he just disappeared. But that thought went to hell as soon as he heard one thing. Rasengan. Naruto yelled as he was coming at Jay from both of his sides and above. Shit, he said as he was barely able to dodge by jumping ahead. He quickly turned around and began to make hand seals. He ended with the snake seal and took out his sword, raising it into the air. Ninpo. Ryaru no Tatsumaki. A bolt of lightning hit Jay's sword and an electrical current was flowing around him. Then the chakra around the sword grew dense. He slashed his sword toward the falling trio of Naruto and a dragon came out of the sword. Naruto saw the attack coming but couldn't really do anything about it. Damn it. I should have attacked from all directions so he wouldn't have had the chance to do that. Well, I guess it's time to bust a new move. Naruto, the one that was aiming at Jay's back, dispelled his clones and began making seals. Raiden no Yoroi, and lightning flowed around Naruto. It became dense but Naruto was still visible. The dragon went ahead and attacked Naruto and an explosion occurred. It shook the arena and the people nearly fell out of their seats. Hey! I told you to fight, not break the arena. The Raikage yelled at the standing Jay, who just rubbed the back of his head. Sorry about that, Raikage-sama. Stop calling me that, damn it. The smoke cleared and Naruto was still standing. The lightning that flowed around him crackled and he just stood with his arms folded and smirking. Is that all you got? Not bad at the Raiden no Yoroi, kid. Almost as good as Sans. Then how about we switch it up? Jay said as he got into a Kenjutsu stance. He simply held his swords at the handle with both hands and held in front of him. He then separated his legs, almost like squatting, and waited for Naruto. Kenjutsu? Huh, I haven't gotten much down but I'll give it a shot. Naruto said as he pulled out the black blade that he got only a few days prior. The crowd was excited to say the least. Most of them hadn't seen a Namikaze in battle for years and they had never seen that sword before. The ones that were new to the clan were anxious to see the fighting style of the legendary Raiden users. Naruto lowered his level and bent his elbows until the side of the blade was parallel to his right cheek. But he didn't end there. A clone appeared on each side of him and that made Jay raise his brow. Ready, go. They yelled and dashed at their opponent. Jay switched to defensive and as soon as they got within a few feet he started blocking strikes that came from all directions. He was barely able to keep up. He's fast. But I have more experience, I just have to wait for an opening, now. Jay slashed and took out both clones as they were in mid-strike. But he missed the real one, who had again disappeared from his view. Where did he go? The dark-skinned swordsman asked. He was wondering why Naruto didn't just get him right there since he had an opening. He would have won the match had he done so. So why did he just disappear? Jay looked around and then looked up and his eyes widened. Naruto was in the air making hand seals and ended the chain with the bird. Suryuden no Jutsu. Water appeared around him and soon took into the form of his own dragon. It began to crash down at the Chunin he was facing. Not this time. Jay yelled and made the snake seal. Raiden. Jion. He held his right arm into the air and lightning shot out of it. It was the natural enemy of water so it went right through the dragon and hit its mark. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the attack coming. He could do nothing as he was now being electrocuted and yelling. When the jutsu was over, he began falling to the ground. He would have landed on his head but he was still conscious so he flipped his body and landed on a knee. He was breathing heavy now. Damn, that one took a lot out of me. And using all of this chakra isn't good either. Good thing I still have one more trick up my sleeve. He smirked to himself. Jay was breathing hard now as well. But he was still standing. He didn't have a large chakra supply but he did have incredible stamina. He slowly walked over to Naruto with his blade in hand and held it to the blonde's neck. It's over. Hey. Naruto laughed and formed a Rasengan. It's not over until the fat lady sings. And disappeared in a yellow flash. Everyone, including the Raikage, nearly had their eyes out of their sockets. They just witnessed a legendary technique and it left them starstruck. Naruto reappeared behind Jay and slammed the Rasengan into the man's back. Jay was sent spinning like a pinwheel from the middle of the stadium and hit the wall ahead of his with his chest and head. He was left on the ground nearly unconscious. Naruto walked over breathing really hard and stared down at the Chunin that he knew he had just defeated. How? Jay asked weakly. When we clashed our kunai at the beginning of the match, Naruto said remembering the scene. I placed the seal on you and used a small genjutsu I learned to keep it hidden. So it was my trump card in case the fight didn't quite go as planned. He laughed. Jay looked at the blonde in shock. He had it planned since the beginning. All in all, I never really had a chance. He smiled. I admit defeat. And the crowd roared. I appeared behind the two and walked up to them. I guess that makes it official then. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, you are now a shinobi of Kumo. And now your rank placement, Chunin. That made the crowd boo, which caused a vein to appear on A's forehead. Who asked you? Naruto laughed. I can live with that. I know I'm not strong enough for Jonin yet, so I'm fine with it. He smiled. It's not that, Naruto. You have the skills for a Jonin just for your strategic planning and ability to execute them. But I want you to get experience first. And when you can put on a good match against my brother, you can have that rank. Hell, I might make you my successor if you're able to do that. I joked. But, of course, Naruto didn't take it as a joke. He now had a determined look on his face and stared at the Raikage. Then that's what I'll do. If I can't make Hokage anymore, then I guess I'll have to go for Raikage, right? He smirked. He put his blade back and saw the expression of the Raikage, who was sweat dropping. What? Let's just go and get your paperwork done. Medic. Take care of Jay over here. A yelled and walked away with Naruto. XXX. Mountain range near the stadium. What is the status of the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki? Itachi heard in his head from the leader, Pain. He and Kisame were observing the match that was between Naruto and a dark-skinned man. He's officially a ninja in Kumo. What are your orders, leader? Itachi asked with his monotone voice. Naruto and the Raikage were now back at the mansion and the dark-skinned man was sitting behind his desk. Naruto stood in front of him with a victorious look. Smiled at seeing the boy have a moment of victory, showing that he probably didn't have much of it. Well, that was a great fight, Naruto. Who knew you could take out one of my top chunin here? Sign this. I told him and slid a paper towards Naruto. What is it? It's the document stating your instatement into the Kumo shinobi force. It's all just formalities that we have to do because of our council. I said to him and Naruto nodded, and then he signed. The Kage picked up the paper and looked at the signature and smiled. He threw him a Kumo headband with a black cloth and saw the boy put it on. Welcome to our ninja world, Naruto. I'm sure you'll be a great asset to us. Now then, I would like to discuss your training. Naruto looked sheepish for a second. What exactly happened when you decided to try and cut a mountain? A yelled. Raikage-sama, keep your voice down or you'll break the windows. Mabui, his assistant, yelled at him. Now it was A's turn to look sheepish. Naruto found that funny and laughed. What's so funny, brat? I can have you on D-ranked mission for a while if you want. Now tell me what it was you were doing. A said, calming down a bit. Naruto crossed his arms on his chest and looked at his new leader. Well, I was practicing in my wind element. I found some scrolls that my father gave me to practice with. It said that if I couldn't find a waterfall then I should try a mountain, at least cut deep enough that would seem satisfactory. He said he didn't want me blamed for crushing a village during training. I laughed at that, but what exactly does cutting a mountain gain you? It's wind manipulation training. If I do this then I will be able to use the element during battle and that would be a huge advantage. But it's still slow coming and won't probably be mastered for another few days. Naruto sighed. A few days. But that's impossible. Element manipulation takes years to master no matter what blood you carry. I was shocked. This boy thought he could do such a thing in a few days. Preposterous. Naruto just shrugged. Not with my method. I recently learned that whatever my Kage Bunshin learn, I do as well. They are able to pass on their knowledge to me. Like, if I send a clone to train in mastering my Rasengan with one hand and I dispel him, then I would be able to do just that. Since I can make hundreds of clones, maybe even thousands, without exhausting myself, then I could learn a jutsu that would take people months in a couple weeks. Simple as that. It's basically a way for me to get stronger, faster. But the only thing it doesn't work with is muscle memory. So I can't use it to get faster or stronger. I need to do that on my own. I was astonished. The blonde in front of him was definitely more knowledgeable than he first thought. Can this method work for anyone else? It could really help us out. I asked, curious. I think it could work for Yugito-chan since she probably has large chakra reserves like I do. Does she? Naruto asked him and got a replied nod. Then she should, provided her chakra is dense enough to maintain the clones during training. A just smirked and laughed at what he heard. You're more than meets the eye, Naruto. I didn't peg you for the smart type, no offense. Naruto just shrugged and smiled. It's fine. I know how I look to everyone, so I'm used to taking things like that. What changed? Mabui asked. Leaving Konoha for one. But honestly, I'm not that smart. I've used this jutsu for years, so I should be able to explain some things even if I only learned about the memory thing recently. I just don't like to let myself seem this way so that my enemy will underestimate me. Deceptive. Good battle strategy. I'll make sure to keep you out of the bingo books to implement that. Now then, I noticed that you also mastered the Haraishin, very impressive. And what's more, you can do the Raiden no Yoroi. How did you learn that one? I asked with a curious yet serious tone. Naruto looked at the man with an impassive face. He didn't want to let the man think that he somehow obtained it through illegal means. He didn't actually. Well, first off with the Haraishin, I kind of got lucky. That caused Mabui and A to fall on their heads all of a sudden. A got back into his chair and looked at the blonde Jinchuriki with a shocked face. You don't get lucky with jutsu like that, kid. How did you use it? He asked. I've actually been practicing it since I left from Konoha. I used Kage Bunshin to train while I was either taking a break or sleeping. I even fought some guy that attacked me one night while they trained. Thank Kami I have large chakra reserves. The guy would have killed me otherwise. Naruto laughed and a sweat dropped. Only he would laugh at something like his own death. A thought. Continue. The scroll said that it took him about 4 years to create it and another half year to master it. But since my father left me notes, it's taking me much less time. Especially with Kage Bunshin. But still, it's going to take a while to master it. When I said I got lucky that one time, I meant it. Jay was at a short distance and didn't have to go very far. If I was any further, well, I don't want to talk about it. I stared at the young Namikaze and smirked. Alright, then how about the Raiden no Yoroi? That jutsu was personally created by me and I don't remember teaching anyone that jutsu. Not sure. Naruto shrugged. It was in the scroll and it said it was perfect practice for lightning manipulation. But, like the Haraishin, it's not mastered yet either. It can only withstand one hit before it dissolves. I don't think my dad stole it from you or anything though. That was when A's eyes perked up. He remembered giving some notes to the Namikaze a few months before the eradication on that very jutsu. That Minato guy must be some kind of genius to get the Raiden no Yoroi to such a level on notes alone. The Kage looked back at Naruto again and smiled. Alright, I believe you. I forgot I gave a scroll to your clan before they were eradicated. The ending made Naruto cringe. Now then, on to other things. You remember when I told you about someone who knew about Rantan, correct? Naruto nodded. Yeah, he could really help me out with this. I want to be stronger than my dad and be the strongest ninja I can be. He grinned widely. Nodded. Darui. Get your in here. That earned him a smack to the back of his head by Mabui. The Kage just mumbled something about her as the door opened. That was when a silver-haired, dark-skinned man walked in. He had a lazed look on his face and wore a high-collared sleeveless uniform, loose-fitting pants, and one strap over one shoulder flak jacket of a Kumogakur Jonin. Naruto couldn't see them, but the man also had a tattoo on each shoulder. Hey, you called? The man asked with a very dull tone. A smiled. Hi, I have someone here who may have what it takes to learn Rantan. You think you'd be able to train him? Darui looked at the blonde with the eyebrow of his visible eye raised. You're the kid from that fight against Jay. You did pretty well considering he's a top shunin. Hey, you look familiar, have we met? He asked. Naruto shook his head. I don't think so. This is the first time I've been in Kumo in my life. And I don't think I fought you either. He's from the Namikaze clan, Darui. Interrupted. He's the last living member. Didn't you hear me yell that? Darui shrugged. Not really. I thought the whole talking part was dull. got a tick on his forehead while Mabui giggled and Naruto laughed. But the whole clan thing changes things. I'll train you if you want. I owe your clan that much for what they did for me. The silver-haired Jonin said. What did they do? Naruto gave a look of curiosity. Darui was taken in as a child by the clan and became a protector of the Namikaze. Those tattoos he has were created by them to allow him to use the Rantan bloodline and also shows that he has inherited the abilities of the Sandaime Raikage, the user of Black Lightning. You have your work cut out for you, Naruto. Explained. I'll meet you at your training grounds at 5 in the morning tomorrow. If you don't show up, I won't train you. Darui said and shunshined in a flash of lightning. A laughed at the face Naruto made. The boy was downright distraught, but then he composed himself. Is that all, A-san? I want to get back to training. Naruto said, looking at the dark-skinned man. A nodded and Naruto exited the building. Raikage-sama, shouldn't you have told him about the CRA? He should know something like that if he want to rebuild and revive the Namikaze clan. Mabui asked. Oh, I simply forgot to mention that. Why? Are you anxious at being a possible candidate, Mabui-san? Grinned mischievously. The assistant blushed and looked away defiantly. Perverted old man. XXX. Naruto was again walking the streets of Kumo. He wanted to get back to training, but he was feeling the strain of using an imperfect Hiraishin on his body. It hurt like hell, but the Kyuubi should heal it in another hour or two. Until then, a nice soak in his onsen should be a good stress reliever. He smiled as he walked, and the people who said their greetings, he would return just as kindly. Who knew all I had to do to get respect was leave Konoha? I should have done it years ago. But then he felt bad at what he thought. Leaving Konoha meant that he would possibly never see his friends again. Not Sakura, whom he can't return his promise now since the bastard was a Konoha missing nin. He couldn't hang around with Shikamaru or challenge Choji to eating contests. He never really hung out with Ino, so he didn't really miss her much. She was just like Sakura but didn't hit him over every little thing. That got him thinking, why did he like Sakura anyway? He always tried doing his best to get her to acknowledge him, but she would hit him and say something like, "Get away, Naruto baka. Sasuke-kun is the only one I want." But she didn't say anything like that since he came back, so maybe she got over the tem. Naruto sighed and found himself in front of his mansion. His senses were running wild. That wouldn't be a problem, normally. But his door was open and it was quiet. Something he didn't particularly like. He crept inside his house to find nothing but darkness. I need to find something that can allow only people I trust in here. Like a blood seal or something. Taking out a kunai, he walked further. He tried sensing different chakra signatures, but he was never a sensor type. But he did know that there was someone in the mansion. His gut just told him. When he got into his living room, the lights turned on and he threw his kunai as they yelled something he's never heard before. Surprise. A small group of Kumo ninja were around the living room looking at him in shock. Well, only one was, and that was Omoi. The kunai nearly embedded itself into his skull. It was protruding from the wall he was leaning against. Karui looked at her teammate and began laughing her off. That was followed by everyone else joining in, Omoi himself included, and left a confused-looking Naruto. Yugito stepped up to him, wiping a tear from her eye from laughing so much. That was classic, Naruto-san. But didn't the Raikage tell you that we were in here? She asked with a brow raised. Naruto shook his head and the kunoichi sighed. She figured something like that. Leave it up to B's brother to try and get one of his own shinobi killed. What's all this about, anyway? Naruto asked. Oh, it's your victory party, of course. She smiled. Party? For me? But why? He kept asking questions. He didn't know why people he hadn't known that long would do something like this. No one ever threw him a party, not even on his birthdays. For becoming one of us, Gaki. It was Jay's idea. Said it would be a good welcoming, and he says congratulations by the way. Yugito-sensei was the one that gathered all of us and here we are. Karui said. Naruto smiled in pure happiness. He rubbed the back of his head and looked at the ground. Arigato, Yugito-chan. Chan. Everyone yelled. A blonde man was snickering. Hey, Yugito, I didn't know you liked new guys that much. Is it from your hot attitude? Shut it, Atsui. Yugito yelled, blushing. What's wrong, kitten? You know you just want to get him in bed and just ravish him all night long. The Nibby laughed. She always got a kick at messing with her container. Nibby. He's not my type. I hardly even know him, anyway. Oh, we could get to know him all right. That just made Yugito turn red before she was brought back to reality. Anyway, Naruto, I'd like you to meet some people. Getting to know your allies is always a smart thing to do. She motioned him to Atsui and a fair-skinned woman with a very large bust. These two are Atsui and Samui. She pointed at the man and the woman. Naruto smiled and bumped fists with Atsui. And when he turned to look at Samui, he gaped. She was obviously very beautiful. She had straight blonde hair and blue eyes. Her attire was a little revealing. She wore a very low-cut outfit with mesh underneath, a short skirt and red handguards, high boots and what appeared to be a modified Kumogakure flak jacket that covered her stomach only. Naruto didn't see or hear them, but Omoi, Yugito, and Karui were watching the ordeal out of earshot. When the blonde Kumo nin saw Naruto looking at Samui's face, she snickered and held out her palm to the two cousins. They groaned and paid up. Damn it, I was hoping to get more candy with that, said Omoi. Before Naruto was caught staring for too long, he smiled at the woman and held out his hand. Nice to meet you, Samui-san. She took his hand and he kissed the top of it. After that he grinned at her while she just stared at the boy in shock. No man had dared do that to her after she built a reputation for being cold. She wasn't really, but she was the quiet type who only offered insight when needed. Likewise, Namikaze-san, she said to him with an expressionless face, as usual. Atsui snickered. Looks like we got a playboy in our ranks, boys. You got balls, kid. No man has gotten away doing that to my sister. I'll let it slide this one time since he was trying to make a good first impression. Not a bad way though, Namikaze-san. Samui said, still keeping her neutral face on. Ahem. Well, on to the others, Naruto-san. Yugito interrupted with a hint of jealousy in her voice. She grabbed him by his collar and began introducing the others present. After getting to know everyone a bit, they all left and gave him one last congratulations before he was left alone with Yugito. She was smiling at him and he wondered why she didn't leave. She unrolled a scroll on the floor and unsealed his flak jacket. He smiled at the action, completely forgetting about it. Here, it should still fit you. She handed it to him while he took off his cloak. Yugito used this opportunity to get a look at his muscles before handing him the jacket. Oh, so kitten likes what she sees. You could take him now. Just tell him you want to give him another present and lead him upstairs. Nibby insisted. Quiet, you horny feline. Yugito fired back. How's it look? Naruto asked with his arms showing her his look. She blushed a bit and smiled. Looking good. But, I've got to go, so I'll leave you with one last present. She said, giving him a peck on the cheek, and left the mansion. Naruto just stood there holding his cheek with a blush and open mouth. I'm really starting to like it here. He laughed. XXX. Outside of Kumo 2 days later. I don't get it, Itachi. We were ordered to get the Kyuubi brats, so why aren't we down there? Kisame asked as he sat in a cave with the Uchiha. I received intel that my foolish little brother is coming to Kumo to try and kill him. I wish to see what skills he has gained and to see if my brother's hate is strong enough. Besides, Sasuke can tire Naruto-kun out and we can get him. Itachi explained. Kisame grinned evilly. And here I thought you wanted to stage a coup against Leader Sama. But now that you mention that, that means I can get a crack at the Snake Tem. Samahata should be happy feasting on his chakra. Itachi nodded. Don't get overconfident, Kisame. He's not a Sanin just for show, but it should be interesting to watch. Do you think that Naruto-kun has gotten any stronger? The shark man shrugged. Knowing him, he's probably still the same from what you've told me. Then again, he defeated a top Chunin from Kumo and they don't fuck around. I wonder how he got so strong since your last encounter with him. Itachi, of course, knew how, but what was the point in letting his partner know that? It wasn't important anyway. Naruto would get strong enough one day to defeat him if he kept using the Kage Bunshin method. All the boy would need is battle experience and no one would stand a chance, except for Madara. That would take everything he'd have to stop the former Konoha founder. Maybe one day, but right now he's far from that level. I give him a few more months of intense training or a few years before then. But that's only if he hasn't discovered the secret to the Kage Bunshin. I wonder how my brother would react to that. XXX. Naruto was at his training grounds with Darui. He was working on trying to produce a Ranten ninjutsu. So far, he wasn't having much luck. Even with Kage Bunshin he wasn't making much progress. The exercise consisted of channeling both Suiten and Raiden elements at the same time to make the jutsu. But what Naruto didn't know how to do was channel Suiten chakra into his seals because he never mastered that part in his training yet. He'd have to start on that soon. Damn it, I can't use Suiten chakra yet. Hey, what if I use my Futen chakra? That might do something. Naruto thought and did as he theorized. He pushed wind chakra into his left hand and lightning chakra into his right and began forming seals. Then you exhale and use the right amount of chakra, he thought. Ranten. Reiza Sakasu. Naruto yelled and thin beams of chakra flew out of his hands. But they were not blue as Darui's were, they were black and white. He tried controlling them but found that would take a toll on his chakra, so he stopped. Darui looked on in amazement. How did you do that? He asked. Well, I can't actually use Suiten chakra fully yet until I master the manipulation training, so instead I used Futen and then did what you told me. I'm just as surprised as you are about that. Naruto explained. Darui looked at his palms and found that they were not scarred as they should have been. When he first learned the technique his palms were smoking for a couple days before he was able to try that jutsu again. This kid is something else. Making black and white lightning is one thing, but in a Ranten, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. The silver-haired Jonin looked at Naruto with his lazed look. Pretty good, Naruto. I've never seen anyone do that before, not even amongst your clan. I think you're the first to do a different colored Ranten jutsu. But let me tell you what could have happened if you did not do it correctly, he warned. The reason that I use Suiten and Raiden is because that's the way the Namikaze makes the Ranten. I believed that that was the only way, but you proved that wrong. But if your theory had gone wrong, you could have seriously caused an electrical discharge inside your body that would have resulted in death. You're very lucky. Naruto gulped at that fact. I guess I should stop taking chances, huh? No, just tell me your idea first and I'll see if it is good enough to try. The blonde nodded and began practicing the jutsu until Darui was called away to the raikage. XXX. That night, Naruto jumped into the king-sized bed he had in the master bedroom. He sighed in relaxation and pondered the day's events. His bloodline is different than others, his kenjutsu is getting better but still needs work. He's gotten better at the Haraishin, but the most he can go is about 25 kilometers with about 2 kunai before he exhausts himself. The Raiden no Yoroi is taking more time than usual to master. Maybe it was because he wasn't using any Kage Bunshin. All in all, his training was going great. But, for some reason, he couldn't help but feel as though something bad was going to happen soon. His instincts were usually never wrong either, but maybe he was just being paranoid. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean someone isn't out to get you. A booming voice spoke. Naruto shot right up and looked around the room when suddenly he felt dizzy and met with darkness. He was now in the sewer that was his mindscape, the habitat of the Kyuubi no Yoko. A place he loathed to be in. Naruto sighed and walked down the hall until he was in the giant room that had a huge gaping hole with bars. One had a tag with the kanji for seal on it. The blonde walked up to the cage and waited until he was met with a pair of red eyes. About time you got here. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What? No talk of how you're going to kill me, take control, and destroy Konoha. We're not in Konoha anymore, remember? I hate that place, and now that you're out, maybe we can come to some sort of arrangement regarding how we continue from here. The fox said, and Naruto's eyes scrunched up from confusion. Arrangement? After all you've done to me, you expect me to just forgive you and work with you? I thought you were the smart one, you bastard kitsune. Naruto yelled, his own eyes flashing red. The fox sighed. Look, you know one Jinchuriki who works well with her Biju. I suggest we work together if we are to face the upcoming trials against Akatsuki and their true leader. True leader? What are you talking about? As I'm sure you know, a man in an orange mask attacked your parents the night you were born and when I was resurrected. He got a nod in reply. But what you don't know is that the man who attacked was none other than an Uchiha. Madara Uchiha. Naruto's eyes widened. How the hell? I may not be a historian, but I'm pretty sure that guys should be 6 feet under Konoha, right? Kyuubi only shook its head. In his lifetime he was able to become partially eternal since he claimed something that allows him to cheat death. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He gained it by taking his own brother's eyes in order for him to reverse the negative effects it had on him. What are you talking about? How exactly does that allow him to cheat death? Naruto crossed his arms in confusion. The fox sighed. Why did he have to be stuck in someone who didn't know this already? Oh, that's right, Konoha is responsible for him not learning. To gain the Mangekyo Sharingan, an Uchiha has to pass a special requirement. To kill someone close to them. Naruto's eyes widened. But the negative effects of attaining this eye is that due to prolonged use, the user becomes blind. Madara almost did if he hadn't taken his brother's eyes and is now the most powerful Uchiha in the world right now. So, when Sasuke Tem tried to kill me at Orochimaru's hideout, it was still for power? Naruto asked in disbelief. He had hoped that there was some part of Sasuke that could have overcome that temptation and go back to Konoha, but now he knew that wasn't possible anymore. He knew one thing and one thing at the moment. The next time he saw his old teammate, he would kill him. That's right. But on to other matters. On the night Madara attacked your parents, he was able to rip me from your mother and freed me. Soon after, I was taken over by a very powerful and a heavily layered genjutsu that made me attack Konoha. So you're saying that the only reason that I had to live a hell on earth is because some psycho decided to attack my parents? Naruto's anger slowly rising. He got a nod in reply to his question. I don't know the true reasons behind his attack, yet. But he made it clear that he wanted Konoha gone. And he knew when a Jinchuriki was at their weakest, during childbirth. That was when he attacked, and then that's when your life became hell. And, for what it's worth, I'm sorry it turned out that way. Kyuubi bowed its head in shame. Naruto was shocked as his eyes widened a bit. The Lord of Demons, the most powerful Biju in existence, just apologized to him. He didn't know how to really take it, but it sounded genuine enough. The blonde sighed. Look, it's not your fault, so there isn't really anything to forgive. If anything, it's Madara's. So what exactly was this deal you proposed earlier? It's something that should benefit both of us. I shall help train you in your mindscape and give you access to my power without any repercussions. But what I want is access to your senses. That way, I can actually feel again, and can you change the mindscape? It's so dreary to live in a say-wr. Before Kyuubi could even say the last word, Naruto had closed his eyes and everything changed. Soon they were both in a large, grassy field that looked similar to that of Konoha's, but there was a mansion just a few feet from them. The Kyuubi was out of its cage and now had a collar with the same tag that said, seal, on it. Naruto smirked at the fox's reaction. How's that? Kyuubi was shocked to say the least. Sure, it wanted a change but wasn't expecting a nice meadow with a giant mansion that looked like one of the Namakazes. I'm impressed, Kit. Very impressed. Now then, your training. I may be able to help you with your Rantan element. I can help give you the knowledge to be able to use the 3 elements of the storm. 3. But I thought you can only combine 2 elements to make a new one. Naruto scratched his head. Ah, but that Darui guy doesn't have the Kyuubi sealed in him, does he? There are multiple elements that can create a storm like in the weather. You figured out one combination by yourself, did you not? What about controlling all 3? You'd be able to create and learn more jutsu from your ancestors. Speaking of which, I think it's about time you cracked open their library. Now that you're settled, you should have plenty of time to read and practice your clan's jutsu. Yeah, I've been meaning to get to that. Naruto scratched the back of his head. But I've been busy trying to do Rantan, and then there was that test earlier today. So I'll send clones to the library while I sleep. And release them in the morning. I can read years worth of jutsu in the time I finish sleeping. He said excitedly. The Kyuubi nodded. Get some sleep, Kit. We shall begin your training tomorrow. Naruto woke up in his bed and saw that only a few minutes had passed on the outside while he was talking in his mind. He wondered how many years of training he could do in one night. But he didn't get his hopes up. He crossed his fingers and summoned about 100 clones. All of you go to the library and read for the night. If what Kyuubi said is true, we can't afford to waste time. They all saluted. You got it, boss. Then they left the room and began reading. Naruto laid back in his bed and slowly drifted off to sleep. Getting ready for the training he had for his element and with Darui the next day.